Senator Mike Jacobs, thank you for taking the time to visit with the Prairie Advocate and our readers. You just had a very interesting conversation with a group of people here at the Java Hut in Savannah. What were some of maybe the two top things that were really on their mind?
Well, I think, there was wide range issues. I think the most important issue here today at the Java Hut was us smiling a little bit in that we opened the Thomson prison yesterday, and I think there's a lot of giddiness in the community, and I think a lot of people are really excited about the potential for the job creation. And I'd spoken to the president about this over in Davenport 3 weeks ago. At the time, the president told me something good's coming, and we had further discussion, but at the end of it he said, this is going to get done. And I'm just really pleased that the president's a man of his word. And this is a huge shot in the arm to the people of Carroll County, Whiteside County, and really Rock Island County, as well as some of my friends in Iowa. These are good paying jobs. These are part of the federal pension system. These jobs are, because they're hazardous pay, are 20 years and out. And I think it's a great opportunity for this community who's been just beat down. And the rural communities, all rural communities have had difficulties in this recession that we've been in. This is a huge shot in the arm. And I think there was some apprehension in the room today too. Of course, people are excited about what's going to happen. But by being excited, sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. So one of the things that came up several times today in different ways that we talked about was making sure that the growth that occurs here is positive. Making sure that things that happen in your community are positive. I just think it's really important that city leaders, county leaders, state officials work together over these coming months to make sure that everything that happens is something that's positive and nothing turns out negative. Of course, the other issue that was talked a lot about here today, we talked about the state budget. We talked a little bit about some pension issues. We talked a little bit about what we can do to encourage young people to get more involved. So it was a very wide-ranging, and I always love to come to the Java Hut and meet with real people. And I just think, if the whole country could come to the Java Hut and sit in the basement, we could solve a lot more problems. Because, we don't yell at each other, even if we disagree with one another. People are respectful, and we have a good back and forth of ideas. And every time I come here, I learn something. And that's really, the interesting thing about being a legislator is that I'm exposed to a wide swath of information. And some is good, some is bad. But every time you get information, you can do more. You can do more. And so I'm just real excited to be here today and to move forward.
Yes, I've always been a strong proponent of limiting campaign donations to a gas card.
Yeah, you
so
and I
could just drive around and drive the roads that
you and I both. I think that it's obscene the amount of money that's required by candidates today. I have been a long supporter of public financing. I know people maybe don't want to do that, but I think limits are needed, and it's ridiculous the amount of money that we're raising. They're saying that my opponent may spend up to $1 million in the upcoming election. People don't even know who he is, but they're going to spend millions of dollars on TV to build his image up and take mine down. And therefore, I have to go out and raise money from labor unions and businesses who are supportive, and normal people, and little old people, $2, $5, $10 at a time. And really, for a Democrat, it's tough to keep up. I'm a good fundraiser. I'm not afraid to ask. But we did set limits in Illinois. And when these federal PACs came in, it took away all the limits. The very first day of the campaign, 3 months ago, my opponent was fueled with $37,000 of super PAC money given to him by someone I don't even know, and that he doesn't even know, who maybe just has a bent or an idea. That's a lot of money in my book, and really, you know, to raise $1 million for a $60,000 a year job doesn't make much sense to me anymore. So I think really this is an area that if I'm reelected, I'm going to really put some energy into, because I don't think your job should be to spend all your time raising money so you can say bad things about your opponent on TV.
You've been in the Senate for 7 years. You've, in that relatively short period of time, you've been appointed to several Senate committees. I think you're the chairman of the Energy, Appropriations, Commerce, Committee of the Whole, and Insurance Committee. That's quite a broad range of subjects. As you know, appropriations in Illinois these days are a pretty divisive topic. There's been we heard a lot of ideas today about how to keep things in line and how to get Illinois back on the right track. You know, having the a negative outlook issued by both Standard & Poor and Moody's is that's got to be tough to try to attract business.
Yeah. And plus, it increases our cost to borrow money. Yeah. So when your rating falls, they charge you more money because you're more of a credit risk.
Well, if what kind of economic leadership do you expect from Governor Quinn in the last two terms?
Well, I would just tell you that Governor Quinn is a very likable man, and the governor and I have had a good relationship. He has worked very hard for the 36th district in many, many ways, including the selling of the Thomson prison yesterday, which without the governor we couldn't have made happen. The governor was certainly part of that, and when we learned of the news, the president released the news to us. Governor Quinn's first call was to me, and my call was to him, and we shared I think a lot of adulation and a lot of happiness. But there are times when I disagree with the governor. I think sometimes the governor is too partisan. I think sometimes that the governor works by himself too much. He doesn't know how to delegate. He doesn't delegate very well. And I understand that. I had my own business for a lot of years, and I understand wanting to do everything yourself and not trusting anybody to do anything. But a smart business person, as I got older, I learned that you have to let things go. And people may betray you, and they may do a poor job for you, but you have to give them enough rope to hang themselves. Because if you don't, what ends up happening is you try to do everything yourself. And I really think that's where the governor is. This is a governor who starts his day at 7 in the morning and works clear till 2 o'clock at night, almost every night. And I'm there with him a lot of times in his office where he's trying to get something done. And sometimes I just feel like he needs to learn to delegate a little bit. I don't envy the job the governor has. I don't know why anybody at this point would really want to be governor, because there's no money, you're having to make tough decisions, and some of these decisions are against the governor's base. We made some Medicaid cuts last year by quelling the rolls and fixing a few issues and making things better. Some people may say we made them worse, but we did save about $1.6 billion. I know the governor didn't want to make that cut, because that cut affects mostly seniors and kids. Another thing we did in Illinois a couple years back was the All Kids program, which is a health insurance program for every kid under 5 years old. Every child has free health care in Illinois. You can find access. That's a great program, but boy, it's become costly. So I think there's always unintended consequences. That's something we talked about in our meeting today, is you push down on one area and it pops up somewhere else. But I think in the whole, the governor is doing an admirable job with what he has. I just hope the economy turns around as quickly as I see it turning around, and we get the state moving again, because the governor, I think, deserves the opportunity to govern in good times as well as recession.
And he still has to deal with the House and the Senate. There's a pretty strong push on by the Republicans to regain at least 6 seats to get the House back in control. What if that should happen? How do you think that'll affect the leadership?
I think in Illinois, bipartisan government is probably a good thing. I like to work in the Senate when there's a 32-31 Democrat majority maybe 28 Republicans. Or the current place where we're at, we have 36 Democrats, one away from a complete veto majority. What that sets up is one-party government. I don't ever think one-party government is very successful. I think it works best when you work with both sides. And to that end, you know, I think, you know, I've been a leader in that area. You know, I have the endorsement of the AFL-CIO, which is the largest labor organization in Illinois. But I also enjoy the endorsement of the Illinois Chamber of Commerce. And people say, how can that be? Because I think I'm the only one in the state that has that. But let me tell you why it can be, is because you have to work together with people. You may disagree with each other, you may have heated moments, you may even talk bad about each other from time to time. But at the end of the day, what separates us in Illinois from Wisconsin thus far is that no Democrat ever felt the need in the Illinois Senate to run out of the state to Wisconsin. You know, we work together. It doesn't always work perfectly, but we try our best to work together. And I hope that it never becomes so partisan that we don't work together. And I do see a little bit of that going on right now that concerns me. Some of the newer Republican members are really far to the right, and some of the newer Democrat members are also awful far to the left. And having been married for 30 years, I think you may not always agree with your partner, but it's best if you get along. And I just think by getting along that we'll move this state farther and quicker than we will by just fighting over petty politics.
Many Democrats, you know, at every level have been you know, pretty vocal about what happened regarding the prison. Congressman Wolf, you know, holding things back in the appropriations.
Right.
To be honest, myself and a lot of other people were surprised at the way this happened yesterday.
Yes.
One of the things that that I had come across was the president's own executive order 13457 called Protecting American Taxpayers from Governmental Spending on Wasteful Earmarks. States that agencies should not commit funds for earmarks included in any non-statutory sources, such as communications from or on behalf of members of Congress. He, of course, was referring to earmark requests from Senator Durbin. Now, nobody is denying the fact that this is going to be potentially has the potential to really get Illinois, this part of Illinois, rolling again with the 1,000 jobs. But you know, Wolf is still pretty adamant and disappointed in how this was happened.
Well, here's how I'd try to lay this out. The president said several years ago that he was going to close Gitmo and bring the Gitmo prisoners to Thomson, Illinois. My Republican friends, instead of looking at it cool and calm and collectively, threw up their hands and said, oh, we can't bring Gitmo prisoners to this country. Well, I don't know if they're afraid of the Gitmo prisoners. For a bunch of tough guys, they don't seem very tough on this issue. I think that we've held
I thought there were some constitutional issues regarding trying people in civil court or federal court.
All that. But we have always held some of the worst inmates in the world in this country. Gotti, Speck, I mean, you go right down the line. There's hundreds of them. So look, I thought at the time this area needed the shot in the arm, and it was a good decision. After that, the president came out and said, okay, we're not going to bring any Gitmo prisoners there. And then the president put a bill in the hopper, which means he put a bill in, and he funded the money for the Department of Justice to buy the prison. That went to Senator Durbin. Senator Durbin moved the bill through the Senate, got it passed. Then, at the same time, Governor Quinn and I worked with the federal government to find a sale price. It worked. The prison was valued at $200 million by an independent appraiser, and we agreed to the $165 million price tag. At the same time, the bill went over to Representative Schilling, and unfortunately, Representative Schilling, after saying he had been opposed to building the prison because of the Gitmo factor, then found himself in the uncomfortable position of having to deal with one of the more powerful people in his party. And rather than help our community, that person told him, "I'm not interested in helping you." So the bill was at a standstill. I will tell you, if I'd have been in the Illinois Senate, if one of my colleagues held up an important economic development project like this, I'd have gotten to the bottom of it. I could tell you that. I'd have made them understand how important it was to my district. So they did everything in their power to make this happen. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the President of the United States is the one where the buck stops. The President has wide latitude. And in this case, the President took that wide latitude. And some people will fault him and say, well, he did the Chicago way. He forced it through. Well, you know what? I'm at the point where I don't care how he did it. I just know that the jobs are so important to this community that making sausage is never a pretty thing to watch, but I like to eat it. And I think in this case the President did what he told me he was going to do, and I'm very pleased by his actions. Now, there is some rumbling from Congressman Wolf and Congressman Schilling that they won't approve the money to open it. Well, I think the President has made a decision to open the prison. And I think the President has the power, in fact I know he has the power, to go around the General Assembly. There are 3 branches of government for a reason. And this certainly could end up in court, but it seems to me that once the federal government makes a decision and the President speaks, the game's just about over. We've done the deal. We've sold the prison, the check's in the mail, the state is going to get the money. I would like to see the state take that money. First, pay down the bond for Thomson, that the Thomsons left holding. It's about a $4 million bond, is my understanding. And then second, I think the rest of the money, and I'm going to put a bill in to do this, to pay back our backlog of bills. Because we have to pay down what we owe our vendors. It's really bad politics to borrow money from our vendors. So I think this news for Thomson is great news. You know, and I want to put aside the politics. I don't care who takes credit, who doesn't take credit. Alls I know is that I've been standing up on the Senate floor for the last 6 years saying, hey, somebody open Thomson, somebody open Thomson. And yesterday I got the phone call that they're opening Thomson, and I was the happiest camper in the whole land. So I think it's really important for local officials to really get involved over the next year to make sure that their community doesn't lose what brought people here to begin with, which is the beauty. I mean, it's a beautiful place, and anybody that doesn't believe that should drive back with me to the Quad Cities this afternoon and look at the beautiful trees, because, you know, I don't see that in portions of my district. This part of the district has hills, and it's very pretty, and I think that's something that we want to remain. And what's going to happen is that these government jobs will roll over 2.5 times. So if you hire 1,000 correctional facility officers, then that means that there'll be 2,500 jobs outside to support those jobs. So this is a win-win for Northwestern Illinois.
One more question,
sure.
Senator. I can't help but think about what happened with Terry Ingram and the Apple River Apiary up in Apple River, and the Department of Agriculture's decision to abate his bees because they alleged that he had a disease, and rather than control it the way the state statutes suggest, the agency themselves went in and took the bees. This has been reported, you know, in several places. You kind of touched on this before about some of the Illinois agencies. Are they overstepping their bounds? I mean, we have laws in place,
right.
Elected officials that
Right.
that make these laws. When do you draw the line?
It's a good question. I think that the important thing is that the law is applied consistently. You can't say, well, I'll have a law, but only some people have to comply. Or those people have to comply, but my friends don't. You can't do that in America. So I think if there is a problem, that we ought to take a look at it, the individual problem, and we take a look at what the whole controversy was. But it does seem to me overreaching to go into someone's business and take their product and shut them down, unless there was darn good reason. And I imagine that kind of thing will end someone up in court. But a lot of small business people who end up in court end up broke. And I think government should be in the position of trying to help people succeed, not fail. And I know a little something about government regulations, being in business myself. And I will tell you that government can be overburdensome. But my opponent in this coming election, he wants to relax all the regulations. Well, I'm for relaxing some of them. But some of the regulations are in place for good reason. And they're probably in place because someone has taken advantage of someone in the past. Business maybe took advantage of a worker. There's a fine balance there. And I think anything we can do to move this state forward, if that includes reducing regulations, if it includes reducing cost, if it includes reductions of anything, I think we have to look at it. And when we go back, if I'm elected, and I hope I am, I'm going to ask for your vote on election day. But if we are, I'm going to work just as hard as I did on opening the Thomson prison and building the university down in Moline and the new portions of my district, which are Rock Falls, Sterling. I see a lot of things in Rock Falls, Sterling that excite me. They have a great riverfront there. It reminds me a little bit of the Moline riverfront. And I think there's great potential. You know, it's an old industrial town that needs to see some little bit of change, a little bit of growth. In the same way, now that we have the prison here and those jobs that are going to follow, 1,000 jobs are going to follow, we got to start thinking about what else you want in this community. Because once you achieve a goal, you better set a new one, or you will be wasting a lot of energy. And I know a lot of people thought we'd never get this prison open. You know, and I'm sure when it's open and running, people will be saying, you're never going to get that prison open. But in the end of the day, you know, a lot of people work together to make this happen. And it's unfortunate that it did become a little bit partisan. And that, that Congressman Schilling was on the short end of the stick. But I would just say that sometimes when you lose, you just got to say, well done. And be happy, because everybody in this community is going to benefit. Not if you're a Democrat, not if you're a Republican, everybody is going to benefit. And I can tell you, I drove up today and I drove by the farmer's market out here. That place looks wonderful. It's going to grow by leaps and bounds. I saw the new trucking company down the road that's moving all the, what are they doing? They're doing the landscaping. They're hiring truckers. I'm just excited by seeing hiring signs. And you know, clearly we have a responsibility to maintain the beauty of these small communities. But we also have a responsibility to make sure there's enough work for people.
Met Forum just announced an expansion in 2 years.
Met Forum? Excellent. How big? I haven't heard this one.
It's they're expecting 60 new jobs within a 2-year period. So
wow.
It's,
see, and people don't realize.
Here.
And people, yeah, and that's important. And people don't realize, like Exelon just did a $320 million expansion. Now, there's a lot of people from this community working there at Exelon. 3M just did $120 million, and Alcoa in the Quads is getting ready to do $300 million. So we have some momentum in northwestern Illinois. Now we just got to get this federal government on the same page, get them all working together, and move us forward. I just want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me and like an adult and talking to me and letting people get a chance to see that I'm not a fire-breathing dragon. I'm very passionate. I really believe in helping people and moving my community forward. And sometimes I agonize over it, sometimes I get excited. But at the end of the day, people need to know I represent them. And if you want a good advocate, I'm the right guy.
Well, thank you for your time, and good luck in your campaign.
Next time I need some of your jam.
Very good.